Prince wasn't just a musical icon. He was a man of fierce convictions and razor-sharp opinions. If he didn't like your music, your style, or your attitude, he wasn't going to fake a smile about it. Over the years, he made friends, he made legends, and he made enemies. In this countdown, we're diving into 14 artists Prince reportedly couldn't stand, from pop royalty to rock veterans and even some unexpected names that will leave you shocked. We'll share insider accounts, rare quotes, and the behind-the-scenes stories of feuds that shaped Prince's reputation as one of the most uncompromising artists in history. Let's start at number 14, a modern chart topper Prince believed was being forced on all of us. Starting at number 14 is Ed Sheeran. When you think of Prince, you think of originality. Someone who constantly reinvented himself, pushed genres forward, and refused to play the industry's game. So it's no surprise that when he saw the music business promoting artists who didn't meet his high standards, he spoke up. And one of those artists was Ed Sheeran. In his memoir notes, discovered after his passing, Prince wrote about his frustration with the way certain acts dominated the airwaves. He said, "They keep trying to ram Ed Sheeran down our throats." This wasn't personal. By all accounts, Prince didn't have a private feud with Sheeran. But to him, Ed was a symbol, a face of the industry's obsession with overplaying safe commercial pop until listeners had no choice but to accept it. Prince's problem wasn't just the music, it was the machine behind it. He saw endless promotion of formulaic chart toppers as a threat to genuine creativity. And when Prince felt something was threatening artistry, he had no issue putting it on blast. This comment stayed hidden during his lifetime, only surfacing when his handwritten notes were revealed. But it gave us a clear picture. Prince wasn't afraid to criticize even the most popular artists of the moment if he thought they represented what was wrong with the industry. And Ed wasn't the only radio powerhouse to land on Prince's list. Coming in at number 13, a pop superstar whose music Prince also believed was being forced on the public, whether we wanted it or not, Katy Perry. His words were direct. "They keep trying to ram Katy Perry down our throats, and we don't like it no matter how many times they play it." Like with Sheeran, this wasn't about a personal confrontation or an exchange of insults. Perry had publicly admired Prince, citing him as an inspiration early in her career. But for Prince, that didn't outweigh his belief that her omnipresence on radio represented the industry's tendency to push safe, formulaic pop until it drowned out everything else. To Prince, this kind of overpromotion was one of the biggest threats to musical innovation. He saw it as a system that rewarded repetition and image over true artistry. And even though these comments only came to light after his death, they show that Prince kept a close eye on the pop landscape and wasn't afraid to call out even its biggest stars if he felt they symbolized what was wrong with the business. Prince's relationship with Michael Jackson is one of the most famous rivalries in music history. On the surface, they were two of the biggest stars of the 1980s, both redefining what it meant to be a pop icon. But behind the scenes, there was a deep and mutual dislike. One of the clearest examples came when Jackson invited Prince to duet on his hit Bad. Prince's response was blunt. He zeroed in on the lyric, "Your butt is mine," and asked, "Who's going to sing that to whom?" "Because you sure aren't singing it to me." The collaboration ended before it began. Prince also turned down the chance to participate in Jackson's charity single, "We Are the World," which many saw as a public snub. The rivalry went beyond music. There were stories of the two competing in everything from basketball to ping pong, each trying to prove they were the better showman. Jackson reportedly called Prince one of the rudest people I have ever met, and Prince wasn't shy about making subtle jabs in return. At its core, this was a clash of egos and artistic philosophies. Michael Jackson was the polished pop entertainer, while Prince was the self-made musical author. Both wanted to be recognized as the era's top innovator, and neither was willing to give the other that crown. Their rivalry lasted decades, fueled by competition, pride, and the constant comparisons made by the media. Prince's feud with Rick James is the stuff of funk legend. It started in 1980 when Prince joined James's Fire It Up tour as the opening act. From the very first shows, it became a battle for dominance. Both men were known for their electrifying performances, and each night they tried to outshine the other. According to members of James's band, the two would watch each other from the wings, looking for ways to upstage one another. Things escalated beyond competition on stage. Rick James accused Prince of stealing his moves and style, and he didn't hide his jealousy when the young newcomer started grabbing the audience's attention. The tension boiled over in 1982 when James claimed he punched Prince after the musician refused to give his mother an autograph. That same night, Prince met James's ex, Denise Vanity Matthews, and soon after she became one of Prince's protégés and his girlfriend. Rick James kept the feud alive in the press, calling Prince a mentally disturbed young man and accusing him of not wanting to be black. Prince rarely addressed James publicly, but his actions spoke louder than words. He continued to rack up hits, pushing funk into new territory while James's star began to fade. Their rivalry was a clash of two massive egos, each unwilling to concede the spotlight, and it never truly ended. On paper, Prince and Sinéad O'Connor should have shared a bond. After all, her biggest hit, Nothing Compares to You, was a Prince composition. But instead of bringing them together, the song drove them apart. Prince reportedly disliked that O'Connor had become famous from his song, especially because she was outspoken and unwilling to conform to his vision of how she should present herself. O'Connor claimed that not long after the song's success, Prince summoned her to his Los Angeles home. She said he scolded her for swearing in interviews, telling her she needed to clean up her image because it was attached to his work. She refused, telling him she didn't work for him. According to O'Connor, the meeting turned ugly. She alleged that he challenged her to a pillow fight but had put something hard inside the pillowcase, hitting her with it. She said she fled his house on foot in the middle of the night, banging on a neighbor's door for help. Prince never publicly responded to these allegations, and those close to him have disputed parts of her account. But O'Connor stood by her story for decades. Their conflict was about more than a song. It was about control, image, and independence. And neither of them was willing to back down. Pink's first meeting with Prince was far from the inspiring moment she had imagined. She was just 19 years old, a new artist with a big voice and even bigger dreams, when she approached him and asked if they could collaborate. Instead of saying yes or no outright, he asked if she owned the masters to her music. It wasn't until years later that she began to understand where Prince was coming from. He had spent much of his career fighting for artists to own their work and control their creative output. To him, collaborating with someone who didn't own their masters meant supporting a system he deeply opposed. What started as an awkward encounter eventually became a lesson Pink carried with her. She later expressed her respect for Prince's principles, even if his delivery had stung at the time. For Prince, it wasn't about disliking Pink as a person. It was about refusing to compromise his beliefs on artistic independence. Prince's interactions with Boy George were rare, but they were memorable for all the wrong reasons. Boy George has said that on the occasions they met, Prince barely spoke to him. One of the most awkward moments came at a Versace party where Prince himself invited Boy George to join his table. George sat down, expecting conversation, but Prince stayed silent, ignoring him for the next 10 minutes until George excused himself. The cold reception may have had roots in the 1980s when Boy George reportedly made a crude joke about Prince's appearance. Whether or not Prince heard about it, his aloofness in later years suggested he hadn't forgotten, or simply wasn't interested in building any kind of rapport. For Boy George, those interactions were disappointing, especially as he admired Prince's talent. The Flaming Lips are known for their experimental, psychedelic sound, and frontman Wayne Coyne has often spoken about his deep admiration for Prince. But when their worlds briefly intersected, Prince made it clear that admiration wasn't mutual. Coyne recalled meeting Prince at an industry event and seizing the opportunity to share his band's work. He handed a stack of Flaming Lips CDs to one of Prince's bodyguards, hoping they would make their way to him. Later that night, the same bodyguard returned, again with the CDs still in hand, and delivered a short, blunt message. Prince doesn't want these. That was it. No explanation, no small talk, just a flat rejection. Coyne said that he and his bandmates actually found it hilarious, calling it legendary rudeness. But it also spoke volumes about how Prince operated. He wasn't interested in being polite for the sake of politeness. If he didn't want something, he'd say so, even if it risked offending someone. For Coyne, it became a funny story to tell. For Prince, it was just another day of being unapologetically himself, uninterested in indulging music that didn't grab him instantly. If there's one artist whose style is the polar opposite of Prince's, it might be Michael Bolton. Known for his smooth, soft rock ballads and a highly polished commercial sound, Bolton built his career on love songs that appealed to mainstream audiences. Prince, on the other hand, thrived on innovation, risk-taking, and pushing genre boundaries. Reports suggest that Prince saw Bolton's music as sanitized soul, technically competent, but lacking the edge, originality, and emotional rawness that he believed true soul music should have. Their paths crossed in the 90s, but Prince reportedly avoided being photographed with Bolton, not wanting to be publicly associated with him. To Prince, Bolton represented the safe, predictable side of the music industry, one that prioritized mass appeal over artistic experimentation. Prince admired artists who challenged themselves and their audiences, and in his eyes, Bolton's music played it too safe. Prince and Madonna were two of the most dominant forces in pop culture during the 1980s, each redefining what it meant to be an artist in their own way. On paper, a collaboration between them seemed inevitable. They were both signed to Warner Brothers, both were global superstars, and both had a reputation for pushing boundaries. Behind the scenes, Warner executives even floated the idea of a high-profile duet in the mid-80s. But Prince wasn't interested, and his reasoning cut to the heart of how he saw himself as an artist. Prince valued authenticity above all else. He pushed the envelope through deep artistic experimentation, not just through shock value. Madonna, in his view, was brilliant at commanding attention, but she often did it through calculated controversy, using sex, image, and headline-grabbing stunts as strategic tools. Prince saw this as marketing first, artistry second. While he didn't publicly trash Madonna in interviews, he quietly made it known to those around him that their approaches to creativity were incompatible. Their paths crossed multiple times over the years, and the tension sometimes bubbled to the surface. In 1994, during an after-show performance, Prince allegedly altered the lyrics of his hit Sexy MF to take a jab at Madonna. She, for her part, would sometimes praise Prince in public, but also made sly remarks that hinted at their underlying friction. There were moments of mutual respect. After all, it's hard not to recognize each other's influence when you're both reshaping pop culture, but neither ever seemed eager to work closely together. In the end, their rivalry was less about personal dislike and more about artistic philosophy. Prince wasn't interested in being linked to what he saw as manufactured spectacle. Madonna wasn't going to change who she was to fit Prince's standards. They were two giants in the same era, standing just far enough apart to admire each other's success while keeping a careful distance. By the time Justin Timberlake launched his solo career in the early 2000s, he was stepping into a musical lane Prince had helped build decades earlier. A blend of pop, R&B, and funk-inspired grooves. Timberlake's breakout single Sexy Back became a massive hit, but when Prince was asked about it, he delivered one of his most famous one-liners. Sexy never left. It was a simple remark, but it carried a sharp edge. Prince reportedly had a deeper frustration with Timberlake beyond just that comment. The Minneapolis sound, like a hybrid of funk, synth, rock, and pop, was Prince's creation, and Timberlake's music borrowed heavily from it. But in Prince's eyes, Timberlake wasn't giving proper credit to the source. This rubbed him the wrong way, as Prince had always been vocal about acknowledging musical influences and honoring those who came before. Things got more personal in 2007 during the Golden Globe Awards. When Prince won an award but wasn't present to accept it, Timberlake took the stage in his place, crouched down to imitate Prince's shorter stature, and delivered a mock acceptance. It was meant as a joke, but many saw it as disrespectful. After Prince's death, Timberlake performed a tribute at the Super Bowl, incorporating visuals of Prince into the show. While the performance was intended as an honor, it stirred mixed reactions, with some fans feeling it was tone-deaf given their history. For Prince, Timberlake represented a newer generation of pop stars who built on the work of their predecessors without always paying them proper acknowledgement. Prince's short-lived stint opening for the Rolling Stones in 1981 has become one of the most infamous mismatches in rock history. At the time, Prince was still an emerging artist, blending funk, R&B, and rock with a flamboyant, androgynous style that was unlike anything in mainstream rock. The Stones, on the other hand, had a massive following of die-hard rock fans who weren't exactly open to something new, especially from a young, unapologetically different performer. During the first show at the Los Angeles Coliseum, the crowd of nearly 90,000 was openly hostile. Fans booed, hurled bottles, food, and even a roasted chicken onto the stage, shouting racist and homophobic slurs. Prince only made it through 4 songs before leaving the stage. Mick Jagger later convinced him to return for the second date, but the audience's reaction wasn't much better. Prince walked off mid-set and quit the tour entirely. Richards publicly dismissed Prince's work, saying he didn't see much substance in it. In his 2010 memoir, he even went so far as to call Prince an overrated midget, a remark that was widely criticized but never publicly addressed by Prince. While Richards eventually softened his stance after Prince's death, praising him as a unique talent, the damage had been done decades earlier. For Prince, the experience solidified his belief that he didn't need the validation of the old guard of rock, especially when they dismissed him without understanding what he was bringing to the table. Eric Clapton is often hailed as one of the greatest guitarists of all time, but his traditionalist approach to music and blues clashed with Prince's philosophy of constant reinvention. Clapton reportedly once described Prince as all flash and no substance in the mid-1880s, a comment that reflected his skepticism toward Prince's flamboyant stage presence and genre-blending style. Prince, for his part, wasn't shy about questioning what he saw as limitations in Clapton's music. In interviews, he often hinted at a belief that true artistry wasn't just about technical skill. It was about making people feel something, move, and dance. One cutting quote attributed to him sums it up: "Has he ever made you dance?" In just a few minutes, Prince reminded the world that he could match or surpass the legends on their own turf, while still making it look effortless. Their feud was never tabloid-level messy, but it was rooted in fundamentally different ideas about what music should be. Clapton revered tradition, Prince lived to challenge it, and when those two philosophies meet, there's not much room for middle ground. Trent Reznor, the creative force behind 9 Inch Nails, was one of the many artists who grew up idolizing Prince. Reznor admired his ability to stay fiercely independent, to control every aspect of his music, and to constantly reinvent himself without compromising his vision. So, when an opportunity arose in the mid-1990s to work with Prince, Reznor was excited. But what should have been a dream meeting quickly turned into one of his most disappointing encounters in the music industry. According to Reznor, Prince's team reached out about a potential remix project, which meant 9 Inch Nails and Prince would be working in adjacent studios in Los Angeles. But with Prince came a strict set of rules. No one was to speak to him unless spoken to first. You weren't allowed to look him in the eye. And most bizarrely, you weren't to say the word Prince at all. Only refer to him by the unpronounceable symbol he was using as his name at the time. When the day came, Reznor caught a glimpse of Prince walking through the hallway, dressed in a striking pink jumpsuit, wearing high heels, sucking on a lollipop, and carrying himself with absolute confidence. As he passed Reznor, he didn't stop, didn't make eye contact, and didn't acknowledge him in any way. In interviews years later, Reznor didn't hold back. He said that encounter permanently changed the way he saw his former hero, even calling him a creep. From pop megastars like Madonna and Justin Timberlake, to rock veterans like Keith Richards and Eric Clapton, to modern chart toppers like Ed Sheeran and Katy Perry, Prince's critiques and rivalries weren't random. They were tied to his unshakable belief in artistic integrity, originality, and respect for the craft. Sometimes his disdain was rooted in personal clashes. Other times it was about what an artist represented to the industry as a whole. But in every case, it was filtered through the lens of someone who refused to compromise his vision. That uncompromising spirit is part of what made Prince so magnetic and so polarizing. He could inspire intense loyalty and deep resentment, often from the same people. In the end, whether you loved him or clashed with him, one thing was certain: Prince left an impression, and that's exactly how he wanted it. So now we'll turn the question over to you. Which of these rivalries surprised you the most? And who else do you think might have found themselves on Prince's bad side? Let us know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe for the next episode, where we'll explore the artists Prince loved and respected the most.